at the time of the Fit Show, we were thinking of starting our own production on a new site, always looking out for an opportunity if a competitor became available. And as we know, the Synseal business originally went into administration in March 2019, and then followed 12 months later Aperture Trading in administration, just around the time we were going into lockdown, rather perversely. So the opportunity sprung up. It's kind of ironic, really. I don't think if COVID hadn't been around and there hadn't been a lockdown, it may not have happened. If business was carrying on as usual, to try and find the bandwidth to be able to contemplate an acquisition might have been problematic. So the fact that we were in lockdown allowed us to obviously make the call, do the due diligence, and get the deal done. And not only that, clearly Aperture's customer base were very unsettled by the administration, but with them not being able to manufacture due to COVID, we were able to pick up the phone, reassure them that a deal was likely, and as a result we've continued that volume of business since we came back. So I have to say, rather perversely, COVID played right into our hands in terms of the acquisition becoming available in the first instance, but then helping us manage it. What we have at the site of Aperture, so it's a massive growth for our business. We were operating on a small industrial site in Lichfield, 50,000 square feet, just warehousing the stock there. We've now grown to 509,000 square foot, so it's 10 times the size of our original site. We have 24 lamination lines, a capacity for about 25,000 tons of production. We have 5 injection molding machines and 5 laminators. So we really have secured quite a substantial infrastructure, and one that will set us in good stead to continue to grow the business. The portfolio of products within Aperture was quite ideal for us. We'll focus on warm core first, because that's maybe the most attractive of the product range. An aluminium hybrid system is something that we were contemplating from a group point of view. We've seen some of our competitors go into aluminium. We know why that is, that aluminium is growing, particularly in the domestic replacement market. So it was attractive. The benefit that we can bring to that is that we can market it internationally. There is a lot of appeal for the product in the US, also in Italy and Spain, and we're looking to start exporting there quite soon. And we can also expand the product range within warm core. So there are some products that were actually being worked on even right up to the last minute before Aperture sadly went into administration, that we can take forward and bring to market. So on the warm core side of things, you can expect a significant expansion in the product range, and that we will take it internationally through our group resources. There's then also the Legend suite, which is a standard 70mm system, but what that gives us is probably access to part of the market that wasn't entirely accessible from a Commerling perspective, because it's priced differently. So that opens up the potential for increased market share, and that's what we'll be using it for. And lastly, we have a vertical sliding system, Evolve, that we sell as a fabricated product to a customer base. We didn't have a vertical sliding system previously, so that has immediately added extra product to our portfolio. What I will say is we have made the decision that we'll rebrand most of these products to bring them into the Commerling family. They'll all carry the Commerling name, and they'll all have a brand in their own right, and we're saving the big reveal for that branding exercise for the Fit Show next year. The answer to that is as well as we could have, I think, but not as well as we would have liked to. Clearly, it's been a massive challenge. I've been in the industry over 20 years. I've seen PVC compound shortages previously, but rather cynically, we would suggest that that's more aimed at us curtailing supply to drive prices up. I think what we've seen lately is a combination of that, but also genuine supply difficulties because of the demand. As I sit here now, I have no guarantee of what material we will receive for the months of December and January. And as you can imagine, that makes it extremely difficult to plan what you produce on the extrusion lines. We've seen shortages on laminated foil, which I've never known before. Bearing in mind that the demand that we're seeing in the UK is common throughout Europe. So I have the luxury of being able to see, obviously, the other subsidiaries within the Profine group and where their sales are in relation to plan, and they're equally increased to the extent that it's causing a pain right across Europe. In terms of Profine specifically, we're fortunate in having acquired Aperture. I have a number of customers who could be forgiven for thinking that the acquisition of Aperture has rather added complexity to our supply chain and led to some of the challenges that we've had. To a certain extent, that's true, because we're trying to integrate two businesses, operate from two sites, manage two customer bases in a market that is affected by COVID in terms of restrictions and movement and transport and so forth, as well as this heightened demand. So from that point of view, they would be right. There's a factor in that. But on the other hand, I don't know what we would have done had we not had the extrusion lines available and the lamination lines available in the UK to cope with it, because the group equally is struggling, and we would have had to rely on all of our supply from Germany through this period. I have to say, the majority of customers, and I'm sure my competitors would say the same thing, are understanding of the situation and managing it particularly well. There are obviously others that don't and don't seem to recognise the scale of the challenge we have. And I think what we've seen is probably the best and the worst of our industry, as we often do in these times. We've seen people pull together and show solidarity in the fact that, look, we're not in hospitality, we're not in retail, we've all got jobs, we're all making good sales and good money, so let's just work through it, and it is what it is. But you've got others that just seem to want to continue to run their businesses in the way that they were running it before lockdown, with no changes to lead times, no management of customer expectations, and that's put more pressure on the industry. I think it's regrettable that everybody's raced to try and fulfill orders, when in reality what we should have done is manage the customer's expectations, extended lead times, because at the end of the day the consumer, I think, is relatively satisfied. If you're a consumer and you're told you have to wait until April next year for your windows, I don't think that's going to pose major difficulties to them. Then we could have extended that demand well into next year, as opposed to it maybe falling short halfway through the year, and not put ourselves under all the stress and strain that we're currently under. But I guess that's a little bit wishful thinking. I can also see it from an installer's point of view, particularly the two men in the van. You know, you take the work when it comes, because there's no guarantee that it will last. So, you know, they're keen to satisfy those orders and get the money in. What we do expect is it to be problematic for the months of January and February, and we expect the price to carry on rising as well on raw materials, and that's something that we've obviously warned our customers to anticipate. Hopefully then we will see an improvement to the supply. Generally what happens when this occurs is that when demand starts to drop, we then see supply begin to free up. We see prices returning to more normal levels. So the question really is you know, when is demand going to tail off? My best guess is the middle of the year, but I've been saying that for months now, that it might tail off, and it still goes from strength to strength. You know, it could be 12 months of more and more supply difficulties and struggles. The honest answer is I don't know. And the same applies to the Brexit question. We don't know what will happen. I strongly suspect by the 31st of December, probably the stroke before midnight, Boris will come staggering out of a bar somewhere in Brussels, and having done a deal. Let's hope that's the case. I'm sure the deal will be done, simply because both sides of the negotiating table need a deal to be done. But as we currently sit, we're expecting not only to have to do customs declarations, which of course we're prepared for, but we're expecting to have to pay the best part of 6.5% on most of our imports that we make. So fortunately, in the acquisition of Aperture, we've reduced our requirement to import by about 85%. In terms of sourcing materials, I mean, any good purchasing policy is to have a number of suppliers in different markets, local and foreign, to get both the benefit of cheaper prices, to keep the prices competitive, but also to ensure that in any eventuality you've got access to supply. And I think you'll see companies do that. They won't standardize on one sole supplier. If they've been buying from China, I think it'll be very prudent then to have a local supplier alongside to do that. And I think Brexit itself will get businesses to promote local production and buy British. So I would expect certainly an increase in the amount of locally produced goods within our industry, and let's hope that's the case.